You know, wandering through this desert has given me some time to reflect on some things. Like, why are we here? How did we get here? Of course, I don't mean in the sense of life's greatest mysteries, like whether we're the product of some cosmic coincidence or if there's really a god watching everything. No, I'm talking about something much more important. What the heck happened to Halo Infinite? It feels like the Halo fanbase has never been as divided on a single game as it is right now. It feels like every day there's a new toxic argument online about who's killing Halo and why. Not to mention certain subsections of the community constantly looking to cancel different Halo content creators solely for having a different opinion, or even just talking about another game that isn't Halo. Even in the darkest parts of the franchise history, I have never seen the community as toxic as it is right now. So why are people so angry over the latest installment of the franchise? Well, to really understand, we'll have to go all the way back to the very beginning. And I really mean the very beginning.
Halo. It's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.
It's hard to imagine nowadays, but there was once a time when the Halo series was composed of some of the most iconic video games of all time. From 2001 to 2007, the face of gaming wasn't some cutesy cartoon mascot like Mario, Sonic, or whatever horror-themed mobile game character kids are obsessing over this week, but was instead the jolly green cyborg himself, Master Chief. Halo Combat Evolved was released by Bungie on November 15th, 2001, and was effectively a sort of spiritual successor to their lesser-known Marathon series. A trilogy of games that managed to gain a bit of a cult following for having deep lore featuring ancient alien civilizations and transhumanist concepts like cyborgs and near-human artificial intelligence. Hey, that sounds kind of familiar. The Marathon series was never a major success though, as for many years the games were exclusive to Apple devices, at a time when Apple was more of a punchline than the must-have tech manufacturers they are nowadays. Halo, on the other hand, had much more of a fighting chance, being a launch title for Microsoft's new DirectX box. Or just Xbox for short. Halo instantly set itself apart from other games in the market at the time, especially on consoles. With its unique world building, simple yet lovable characters, and vast sense of scale, not just in level design, but in the universe as a whole. What really kept people coming back to Combat Evolved, though, was its multiplayer. 2 to 8 player matches with a focus on huge maps and a varied interactive sandbox. Halo was the first game to take the multiplayer arena shooter style of Quake and Unreal and make it accessible for the wider console market, while also adding their own innovations on top of it. Bungie's next 2 installments expanded even further on the universe and the characters while simultaneously improving on the overall gameplay mechanics. Not to mention the innovations of bringing Halo's iconic multiplayer experience online, which gave them more opportunities to expand the game even further. Forge mode, custom games, armor customization, an online file browser to share clips, screenshots, maps, and game modes among other players. Halo 2 and 3 weren't just online shooters, they were a social network. A metaverse, if you will. Halo's, let's keep calling it a metaverse, led to a surprisingly close-knit and passionate community of people who all liked and played the games for different reasons, but still managed to bond over the unanimous love for the games as a whole. Even when Reach introduced some controversial attributes to the overall gameplay with weapon bloom, armor abilities, and loadouts, it still continued to expand on the community features. It especially fleshed out armor customization to an unprecedented degree, and expanded Forge mode even further with the introduction of Forge World, a full open area for players to make whatever they want with near limitless possibilities. Aside from the item cap, because it was running on an Xbox 360 and you didn't want to overload the CPU or anything, but other than that, almost limitless possibilities. However, after wrapping up production on Reach, Bungie would end up leaving the evil clutches of Microsoft and into the even more evil clutches of Activision. This led to Microsoft creating a brand new studio from the ground up to finish the fight once again, and again, and again, and again. This led to the creation of 343 Industries. Coincidentally, this is also when things started to take a turn for the worse. It was revealed early on that 343 was actively looking for developers that, and I quote, hated Halo. Which is a questionable decision to say the absolute least. I get it though. You want to bring fresh eyes into a series so that you don't get sucked into an echo chamber. But it's also possible for you to go too far. Like, for example, hiring former BioWare employees that see Halo as nothing more than a mindless dude bro running gunner in the style of Call of Duty. Yeah, that might cause some issues. Halo 4 and 5 are essentially two sides of the same coin. They're both very divisive within the community for drastically different reasons. Halo 4 featured a campaign that I would personally rank above Halo 3 in many ways. Halo 3, with all its strengths, definitely had the weakest story of the original trilogy, especially with its handling of Cortana. While the first two Halos characterized Cortana as Chief's smart and sassy partner in crime, Halo 3 characterized her as nothing more than a damsel in distress waiting to be rescued. Halo 4, on the other hand, essentially acted as a deconstruction of Master Chief and his relationship with Cortana, telling the story of an aging Spartan past his prime and an AI on the verge of rampancy. Two characters having to fight overwhelming odds in an ever-changing universe that they barely recognize anymore. The story ultimately culminated in Cortana sacrificing herself to protect Chief and the rest of humanity from total annihilation. It was a bittersweet end to a surprisingly beautiful story.
Before this is all over, promise me you'll figure out which one of us is the machine.
So many good lines in Halo, man. The gameplay of Halo 4 is Call of Duty, or more accurately, a sort of weird, unnatural marriage of Call of Duty and Halo Reach. Sprint, custom loadouts, and kill streaks were added, armor abilities returned, and all this made a very frantic and fast-paced multiplayer experience, at the extreme cost of the sandbox-based map design that made Halo such a powerhouse to begin with. Halo 5 Guardians was practically the exact opposite. The campaign was an absolute travesty of storytelling, level design, and overall structure, sidelining Chief to make way for Poochie. I mean Spartan Locke. No, I mean Poochie. He was freaking Poochie. Holy. The campaign was split up into two separate stories, similar to Halo 2. Master Chief and Blue Team went AWOL to search for Cortana, who may or may not still be alive, and Locke's fireteam Osiris have been tasked to hunt them down. But first, we have to go help the Arbiter! Guys, remember the Arbiter? It's the Arbiter from Halo 2! You love the Arbiter, right? Let's spend a bunch of time with the Arbiter! The thing is, unlike Halo 2, where the missions were fairly balanced, of the 15 missions in the game, only 3 of them actually followed Master Chief. This lack of balance led to a very disjointed story that was difficult to follow, as it felt like everything important to the plot was happening off-screen. Oh, and remember that profound sacrifice that Cortana had at the end of Halo 4? Well, she's alive again, and she's evil now, so get f***ed, I guess. The multiplayer gameplay of Halo 5 was fun in its own right, but it was also a further bastardization of the original sandbox-based gameplay with the addition of Spartan abilities, which were basically inherent superpowers that all Spartans have at all times. So instead of traversing the battlefield looking for equipment or other weapons to help yourself in different situations, you basically had everything you needed straight from the get-go. This made for pretty intense matches, but also made every map feel pretty samey, with almost no vehicles or interactive set pieces to help shift the tide of battle. The game felt like it was trying too hard to be an esport and forgot to be an actually fun social experience as well. 343 also thought it was a great idea to lock all cosmetics behind loot boxes, which went down super well with the fanbase. Yeah, suffice to say, Halo 5 left a really bad taste in the mouths of Halo fans everywhere. For about 3 years, it felt like the fandom began debating what exactly 343 needed to do to bring the series back to its former glory. With little pushback, it felt like the majority of the fanbase agreed that Halo needed to do at least 3 things. Bring back the sandbox-based multiplayer of the classic games, tell an engaging story about the UNSC on the back foot against overwhelming odds, and bring back Bungie's iconic art style from the original trilogy. But more than anything, fans were searching for hope. The E3 reveal trailer for Halo Infinite, despite having no dialogue, gameplay, or any story details, managed to tell people all they needed to know without a single word. The pan-out to Chief's classic Mark VI helmet was all fans needed to know that 343 was listening to criticism, and was making moves to bring Halo back to the feel of the original Bungie trilogy. Sadly, 343 would quickly go dark again, giving very little information until next year's E3, which gave a little more information. Fans were introduced to a new Marine character with a tragic past, and was very clearly intended to be a surrogate for the classic fans of the series.
Yes! 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 We're going home!
It was clear from the get-go that something terrible had happened to the UNSC, once again putting the faction in a losing position against a greater threat. While the story appeared promising to many fans, there was still worry about how the game would actually play. And we would have to wait one more year to have those questions answered. When fans finally saw the gameplay, opinions were mixed. If you drown out all the people whining about sprint and clamber, which didn't look that bad, you'd find that most people were happy with the gunplay, the return of equipment instead of armor abilities, and the open world approach looked promising. But they were also concerned about the graphics and performance, which didn't look great. Except for, of course, the almighty Craig. May his glory shine down on us all.
Monkey.
But yeah, the brutes looked horrible. Except for, of course, you, Craig. You're perfect. The brutes just looked like shaved gorillas. Not exactly the hulking, hairy beasts fans were accustomed to from the Bungie days. Unsurprisingly, there was immediate outcry from fans for 343 to delay the game, as it clearly had some major issues to iron out. And shockingly, 343 actually listened. Huh, fancy that. A studio actually listening to the fans and delaying a game for quality control. After the gameplay reveal controversy, 343 suddenly became a lot more open about the development of Infinite. They even announced that Joseph Staten, the writer of the original Bungie trilogy, one of the best Halo book, Read Contact Harvest, it's amazing, would be brought on to help fine-tune aspects of the campaign. But they would occasionally mention these armor coatings, which they seemed oddly vague about. The only information they would ever give us is that it was a new way to increase the level at which players could customize their Spartans. Well, that sounds like a great thing and totally not just PR talk. Yeah, suffice to say, people saw through this pretty quickly, paired with the fact that the multiplayer component was going, free to play. It was clear from the get-go that most cosmetics were going to be locked behind a paywall, but it wasn't entirely clear how bad it was going to be until fans got their hands on it, which wasn't as long as we thought it would be. 343 rolled out multiplayer flight tests over the summer of 2021, which were effectively early vertical slices of the game designed to gauge server strain and weapon balancing. It's also important to remember that these were not the typical open betas people are used to from AAA releases, where it's literally just the finished game temporarily released to generate hype. These were clearly unfinished builds released to the public to help gather data. It felt like the fan base was actively taking part in the development process, even if only from a minor QA position, which was a really cool experience. Not to mention the fact that giving fans an early hands-on experience also alleviated a lot of people's worries about how the multiplayer would actually, well, play. Halo Infinite effectively plays like a perfect blend of previous Halo multiplayer experiences. First off, there is the return of the balanced sandbox gameplay of Halos 1 and 2. Everyone starts off with the same weapons, and traversal is done through running, getting in vehicles, or the brand new
Grappling hook!
Yeah, the equipment mechanics of Halo 3 have also returned, now with multiple uses, essentially making them a fusion of Halo 3's equipment and Reach and 4's armor abilities. And while the absolutely insane Spartan abilities from Halo 5 have luckily gotten the old Yeller treatment, hopefully never to return, the enhanced mobility features of Sprint, Clamber, and Slide have all returned, which everyone seems totally okay with. These mobility options don't take away from the sandbox experience and actually make the simple act of traversing the maps really fun, especially when paired with certain equipment like the repulsor and the aforementioned grappling hook. At the surface, the multiplayer portion of the game was shaping up to be one of, if not the best in the series. But things were all downhill from here. On November 15th, 343 released the whole multiplayer component of Infinite a whole month before the campaign was slated to come out. The game released with 10 maps, an anemic 4 game modes, no custom games browser, and worst of all, no Forge mode. Franchise staples like King of the Hill, Griffball, Infection, Assault, and so many others were completely absent, and many still are to this day. Not to mention that people's fears about monetization were also confirmed, as this was the first time we got a full look at Infinite's customization customization and shop feature. Gone are the days of earning armor pieces naturally through gameplay and achieving feats as a player. Now, all cosmetics have a price tag. There are two ways to unlock cosmetics in Infinite. Either pay $10 for the season's battle pass and grind for the armor you want, or you can buy bundles from the shop that may or may not have the armor you want because the shop never has everything at the same time. Yes, there may not be scary loot boxes anymore, but in its place we have a method that's just as, if not more, scummy. FOMO. Preying on players who panic buy cosmetics out of fear that they may not be able to get it again. Not to mention these ever mysterious armor coatings that they tried so hard to keep us from knowing about. These items that were meticulously designed to maximize profits. Customization for your Spartan. So what are they really? Colors. You have to pay for colors now. And these aren't crazy patterns or wacky designs either. You can pay a whopping $20 for the privilege of this immaculate solid white. I want to get a little personal for a sec. In every single Halo game I have ever played, my Spartan has had red and orange armor. You know, like fire, because I'm Lord Pyromon. Guess what armor coating doesn't currently exist in Halo Infinite? Red and orange. With this system, I'll have to wait primordial knows how long for 343 to eventually give me the opportunity to buy the colors that I want, the colors that I always use. And even then, I'll still have to pray that the armor coating is even compatible with my preferred armor core, because 343 decided to lock off armor pieces to certain specified cores, reportedly due to issues with the rig and to reduce clipping, which is a bold-faced lie considering the multiplayer bots are also able to mix and match armor cores just fine with little to no clipping at all. This is clearly just a way to justify selling players the exact same item a second time on a different core. The sad fact of the matter is that by the time the single-player campaign finally released, the honeymoon period with the multiplayer was over and people were finally starting to see the cracks in the foundation. It didn't take long for people to realize that the multiplayer has a massive problem with desync. For those who don't know, desync is when the information transferred between players in a multiplayer game isn't completely synchronized, which can lead to a lot of deaths that might seem cheap and unfair, like for instance getting shot from behind a wall, getting a melee kill without facing a player, or this fun example where a tank just outright doesn't work.
The tank's not working! God damn it! You can't make this shit up, bro!
The thing is, there's always going to be some level of desync in a multiplayer game, but it's the job of the developers to refine the netcode to ensure that any desync that does happen is borderline unnoticeable. And in Infinite, boy is it noticeable. So far, all the competitive tournaments with Halo Infinite have been riddled with cheap deaths, crashes, and random bugs, and it's just embarrassing for the whole community. This game being put on a massive pedestal like this just for people to see it be a buggy, broken mess. There's also Big Team Battle, which has been a staple in the Halo series. And luckily, this game mode was not left on the cutting room floor. And in fact, 343 made some cool and not so cool additions and changes to this mode. The addition of these vault areas that you can hack into to get power weapons and equipment is really cool and adds a fun little side objective to the maps. On the other hand though, vehicles are now incrementally dropped at specific times during the match rather than all of them spawning in at once at the start. I get what they're going for, having the action ramp up in intensity as it goes on, but it just makes every match feel procedural. It feels less like you're flung into a chaotic battlefield and more like you're acting out a play or something. Remember near the beginning of this video where I referred to Halo as a metaverse? Well, I'm bringing that back up now because it didn't take long for fans to realize that Halo Infinite just didn't feel as much like a community as the classic games. This was mostly attributed to the missing features that left many of Halo's sub-communities in the dust. The Forge community has nothing for them in Infinite, and neither does the Machinima community considering theater mode is completely broken. Fans of making crazy and weird custom games probably have it the worst though, as the custom games mode has been nerfed into oblivion and is also extremely unstable. But even with all that, they can't even share their game modes with other people because of the totally broken file share and a lack of a customs browser. That's not all though. There's also the fact that the EXP and progression in the Battle Pass is strictly tied to randomized weekly and daily challenges. This discourages teamwork and leads to everyone basically fighting for themselves to grind out their own personal challenges, sometimes outright ignoring objectives solely to do so. This lack of community spirit sucks out a lot of the fun people remember from those older games. There's also the issue of map design in Infinite being too competitive. While the equipment makes traversal of the maps fun, the majority of Infinite's multiplayer maps are meticulously balanced 3-lane maps focused on hurling the player into combat at every turn with little downtime between potential encounters. This leads to most matches being extremely tense as you're constantly having to stay on edge waiting for the next enemy to pop up. And maybe this high intensity works for some players as it gives the game a much more competitive edge, but it also further degrades the sense of community that the Halo games used to have. The classic Halo games had a competitive community, yes, but the maps were designed with fun in mind first and foremost. Infinite is desperately lacking a Zanzibar or an elongation, maps that were designed around fun and engaging set pieces for players to interact with in a dynamic way. But enough about multiplayer. I'm sure the $60 single player is well worth the money. Right? Halo Infinite is the first game, I guess technically second game in the series to have an open world structure, rather than the level-based structure that's been the norm in the series so far. Unlike the pseudo-open world Halo ODST, where you're a lone marine having to scavenge for resources in the Covenant-ridden streets of New Mombasa, this game shares a lot of similarities with Far Cry. It's a massive open world filled with bases to capture, collectibles to find, and targets to assassinate. The thing that sets this apart from Far Cry though is the fact that, well, you're a Spartan. It's Far Cry's open world style, but the gameplay is still definitively Halo. Spending most combat situations using objects in your environment to outsmart and outmaneuver the enemies, which is now only enhanced even further with the equipment, especially the
Grappling hook!
The most important thing an open world game needs to be fun is to make the simple act of traversing the world part of the fun. Grand Theft Auto has its wide range of vehicles, Spider-Man has its web swinging, and Halo Infinite has Halo's vast sandbox. The game gives you the tools, but you're the one who gets to decide how to use them and for what purpose. The feeling of driving into a banished base in a warthog full of marines and raising hell before grapple-jacking the first Banshee that's stupid enough to come in range is an indescribably fun experience that only Halo can provide. But as much as I hate to say it, that's where my praises for the campaign's gameplay ends. The game may be set in the open world, but the campaign's story mostly takes place in linear levels, which in itself isn't an issue. But it doesn't take long to realize that having this game take place entirely on a Halo ring might have been a bad idea. What do I mean by that? Well, it's because all of the levels look exactly the same. It's all Forerunner corridors. It's all just alien tech. It's all the same. The same puzzles, the same geometry, the same encounters. It's the same thing over and over again. What were they thinking? In every previous Halo game, there was quite a bit of variety. Alien spaceships, human cities, UNSC frigates, and of course, Forerunner ruins. But when you strip back that variety, everything starts to blend together. It's hard for me to identify one specific level from another, which can make replaying it, which I had to in full for this video because there's no way to replay singular missions, a bit of a tedious chore. Then there's the boss fights in this game, which for the most part are just Destiny-style bullet sponges with massive health bars. First-person shooters have always struggled with making boss battles interesting, and Halo is no exception. But there has to be a better way to do it than this. But what's the story like? Is it any good? Will this video get more than 100 views? Will I ever get a girlfriend? All of those questions have less than desirable answers. Halo Infinite is set roughly 2 years after Halo 5, and in that time a new alien faction has risen to power, the Banished. Atriox, the leader of the Banished, led an attack on the UNSC Infinity, which irreparably crippled the UNSC forces and sent all human colonies into disarray. With Master Chief missing, the morale of the UNSC is dwindling, with the few fragments left stranded on the mysterious Zeta Halo. Oh, what's that? What happened to Cortana, Locke, Lasky, Palmer, Halsey, Blue Team?
Don't ask questions you aren't prepared to handle the answer to.
To answer your question, Cortana, her Guardians, and her legions of AI followers all just sort of disappeared overnight. Locke was killed off screen by some random brute, and Lasky, along with all other people stationed on the Infinity, are either dead or MIA. Also, Blue Team is pretty much written out of the story entirely because they were sent off, without Master Chief, on some super secret mission that the writers probably haven't thought up yet. The fact that the response to the negative reception of the last 2 games was to just get rid of everything and pretend like it didn't happen just puts a bad taste in my mouth. Palmer was cool. Lasky was cool, Locke had the potential to be as cool as the Arbiter was, and if you've read any of the books, you know that Blue Team is an extremely important aspect of Master Chief as a character, but instead, they pulled a Rose Tico and just got rid of him. I understand why they did it this way, but generally it just feels like a waste. Especially when this game is supposed to be the final installment to a trilogy. So Master Chief is saved by the pilot we saw in the E3 trailer, and he's ready to use Master Chief's problem-solving skills to get him back home. But oh no, Master Chief has to go back to Zeta Halo because he has unfinished business, to retrieve a package and take down the new leader of the Banished, Escharum. Escharum? What happened to Atriox? He's missing in action too? They just introduced the guy! You know, fine. Okay, so there's this new guy called Escharum who's heard tales of Master Chief and wants to try his hand to best him, as he's been searching all his life for a worthy opponent. He's cool, I guess. There's also Jaga Erdamnai, a former Silent Shadow assassin for the Covenant, an experienced Spartan killer. But I just like to call him Wasted Potential, because, spoiler alert, you only encounter him once at the end of the game and then you kill him. They build this guy up like he's gonna be stalking you at every turn to try and corner you and take you out, but he's really just teased throughout the game and then you fight him once and that's it. There's no build-up. He doesn't feel like much of a fleshed out character like Tartarus or Guilty Spark, where you hate them more and more until you finally get the chance to kill them. Instead, you fight him once, kill him, and then you just sit there like...
That's it?
Escharum is a far better villain, as he actively taunts you over the course of the game, and sends some of his highest ranking soldiers after you to test your strength. So after Chief and the pilot blow up a Banished frigate and head to Zeta Halo, we're introduced to Not Cortana, also known as the Weapon. The Weapon is an AI based on Cortana's architecture. She was designed to imitate Cortana to capture her for Chief to retrieve and bring back to the Infinity. But considering Cortana just kinda disappeared out of nowhere, she never got to fulfill her purpose. The Weapon is one portion of the story that makes all the drop plot lines somewhat worth it. She is genuinely a really interesting and compelling character with the fact that she doesn't know exactly how she's connected to Cortana. All she knows is that her prime directive is to capture her. Due to this, she doesn't understand why everyone seems so on edge when she's around. That's the thing. Despite me not liking how much the team ditched from the two previous games, what we're left with is a really compelling story about found family. The pilot, the Weapon, and Chief all build each other up and help understand different things about themselves. It's a type of story that we don't see in these sorts of games all too often. There's this scene with Chief and the pilot where, without giving too many spoilers, the pilot vents to Chief about his overwhelming survivor's guilt. And for the first time in the series, Chief actually opens up a little and tries to comfort him. He does it in his own trademark Master Chief bluntness, but it's a really heartwarming moment and shows how Chief is growing as a person after losing Cortana. It shows that he's becoming human. I don't know, they just did a really good job at the dynamic of these two characters and making me feel for them. Eventually it's revealed that Zeta Halo was designed to seal away an ancient evil. But not that ancient evil, or that ancient evil, or that ancient evil. Instead, it's an entirely new ancient evil called the Endless, that are even more dangerous than all the others. How are they more dangerous? The Banished somehow accidentally free one of the Endless, who refers to herself as the Harbinger, who plans to revive the rest of the Endless, and it's up to Johnny Boy to stop her. But not before killing the Wasted Potential, defeating Escharum, and learning that Cortana deleted herself because she just kinda didn't feel like being evil anymore, I guess. What happened to the Guardians, or any of Cortana's AI followers?
Ask questions you aren't prepared to handle the answer to!
But after killing the Harbinger and learning basically nothing about her or the Endless except for just how big a deal they totally are, guys, trust me on this, we see an echo of Cortana that she apparently recorded milliseconds before her death, and it honestly could be interpreted as an apology letter from 343, which is just the funniest thing I can think of.
I'm sorry. I didn't have long to plan this. A few milliseconds, really. I hope it worked out.
So the day is saved, and the story ends with Chief, the pilot, who as a way to show his newfound trust in Chief, reveals his name to be Esparza, and the newly dubbed Cortana all fly off into the horizon to embark on their next adventure. And then it's over. Until the DLC comes out, that is, which, still has no solid release date, and doesn't seem to be a priority for the team due to the aforementioned missing features. And this finally leads me into why I'm calling this video an autopsy of Halo Infinite, the game's ironically named live service.
So something interesting about Halo Infinite's live service is it's technically not the first time that 343 has tried this. Halo 5 they referred to as a service game prior to its release. The difference, though, I think, between Halo 5 and Halo Infinite is that Halo 5 was also quite difficult to get out the door, but technically the foundation was there for them to add stuff to it in a rather seamless way. With Halo Infinite, I think it's very obvious that the game had a lot of problems getting out the door. I think that the game they were making was probably a little bit too ambitious for the technology that they had available to them with the Slipspace engine, and thus a lot of the development kind of involved hacking things together and getting the game very crudely assembled just so that it could meet its release date. And now you have a game that is pretty unstable. It's very buggy, it's very glitchy, it has tons of netcode related problems, and there's just this texture of it being an alpha or a work in progress build of a greater game. In terms of live service, honestly not much has been going on. It feels kind of like sometimes the community needs to almost pull teeth just to get 343 to patch some of their bugs, and it's probably because the game is so unstable. Behind the scenes, I'm sure 343 is doing a lot of overhauling, a lot of reworking and stuff, but for the community, it's been a lot of silence. Hopefully that silence will break as we approach the year anniversary since the game's release last November, but I don't know, man. It's been very quiet on the live service front, and it feels kind of disappointing, because the marketing had us believing that this was going to be a game getting constant updates.
As I said before, after the honeymoon phase of Infinite wore off, Halo fans started to get restless as the flaws and missing features of the game started to feel more and more prominent. You can only play the same 10 maps so many times before going a little stir-crazy. From November 2021 to May 2022, the game only got very incremental updates, mostly comprised of a few events with somewhat mediocre unlocks, and a plethora of new items to buy from the store! Don't you want to buy some new colors from the store? Look at all the cool armor you can buy from the store! Don't wait, steal your parents' credit card now, or else you can't buy the silly cat ears from the store! This went on for 6 months before 343 finally gave fans the long-awaited Season 2 Lone Wolves, which added a genuinely pretty cool new armor core, along with 2 maps and 2 new game modes. King of the Hill, which should have been in the game at launch, and Last Spartan Standing, which is basically a diet battle royale mode with a hint of gun game. Call me ungrateful, but this feels like nothing after a 6-month wait. I don't want to do this. Like, it genuinely hurts me to do this. But look at Fortnite. Say what you want about the game, but it's probably one of the most popular multiplayer games in the current gaming landscape for at least a couple reasons. And one good reason is its consistent updates. Fortnite gets a new update roughly every 3 months. And with that comes a new battle pass, sweeping changes to the sandbox, the map, and new cosmetics available to players. Halo Infinite's seasonal update is tragic by comparison, especially when I've talked about what 343 added in Season 2, but I haven't mentioned all the things 343 removed or just outright screwed up. First off, let's talk about the Mangler. I like the Mangler. It's a fun gun that's a clear callback to the Mauler from Halo 3 while operating totally differently. The thing is, the Mangler is also ridiculously overpowered because it's really easy to get one shot off on someone and then melee them for an easy kill, hence why the gun is so much fun to use. Or why it was fun to use. You see, a small group of competitive players didn't like the Mangler because it was too much fun, and fun isn't allowed in competitive play, so they begged 343 to nerf it. So in response, 343 nerfed all global melee damage across the board. What the hell kind of solution is that? Why not just nerf the gun or make it less common in the maps? Upgrade it to the rank of a power weapon. Why just nerf all melee damage like that? That breaks the entire meta. Then there's the tank gun. A fun little exploit that people discovered in the campaign that allows you to wield anti-air cannons as if they were normal weapons. A lot of people were comparing this to a similar Easter egg in Halo 2 that allowed people to wield the Scarab gun. But once again, 343's fun phobia kicked in and they removed this totally harmless bug that many people thought was left in intentionally as an homage to Halo 2. This and another exploit that allowed players to fly the Pelican were 2 bugs that were both pivotal to speedrunners of the game, and were both completely removed by 343 without warning. After the inevitable outrage outrage from fans, 343 released a statement that they would add the features back in a later update, which with this game could mean anything. So we're now waiting yet another 6 months for the next season of this mediocre game, and it really makes you wonder, why is it taking them so long to roll out these updates? Where are all their resources being allocated to if not to the continued support of the game? Well, if all the leaks are to be believed, it seems they are taking one thing from Fortnite at least. The Battle Royale mode. Generally speaking, I have no problem with Battle Royales. Heck, I don't have any issue with a Battle Royale mode in Halo, but this just isn't the time or the place for this. The ugly truth of Battle Royale modes is that they require a ton of upkeep. They're not just an alternate game mode, they're full open worlds that players expect to be kept consistently fresh with new areas and items being added with each update. Just look at how many studios Infinity Ward has absorbed just to keep Warzone alive. What makes anyone think that 343 could consistently support a Battle Royale and the traditional arena modes that people expect from Halo? Meanwhile, what about the single-player DLC? Wasn't there another game that had a single-player mode that promised more content before hyper-focusing on an over-monetized live service mode? Oh yeah! Boy, am I excited for that DLC that's totally gonna come out any day now. I've genuinely seen people that I respect, claim that fans are only so critical of Infinite because they've played it too much and got burnt out. Now, did I burn myself out on Halo Infinite by playing it too much? Yeah, absolutely actually. But I swear that I and many others wouldn't have had such heavy burnouts if the maps and progression weren't so tedious, and if the game had all the content expected from previous titles. Because then it most likely would have had that sense of community that made Halo such a juggernaut all those years ago. Even after all this though, I still can't say in good faith that Halo Infinite is a bad game. Even with all of its shortcomings, it's still a really fun game at times. It's just a major disappointment with massive potential that has been grossly mismanaged by a company that has proven time and time again that they don't understand what makes this franchise tick. To be completely honest, I haven't played Infinite since May. I have not experienced most of what Season 2 has to offer, and from what I've seen, I don't think I'm missing out. What this game needs is not a Battle Royale. It needs a full refresh. Hopefully people will come back to the game after Forge and Campaign Co-op come in, but the game will still be missing custom browsers, infection, functional custom games, infection, and the store is still busted, desync is still rampant, armor sets are still locked behind these arbitrary cores. Let me put the Elite Skull on my Reach Spartan, there's no reason for me to not be able to do that. And just in general, there's still that lack of community that makes Halo, Halo. So for now, as far as I'm concerned, Halo Infinite is dead. Cause of death, neglect. On the bright side, I finally found my way out of that desert and into what looks like the Windows XP background.
Hey, Pyro! Long time no see!
Oh God, please no. I am never making a long video ever again. Hey there, Pyromaniacs. This is the outro. I've been recording for 2 hours and 9 minutes. This is probably a 30-minute video, but I stutter and ramble a lot, and I have to do all kinds of stupid takes, and it's horrible. But yeah, I hope you like this video. I'm never doing a long video ever again. So, thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and become a Pyromaniac yourself by subscribing. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.